All right. David Matthews on the drums. Well done, sir. That was awesome. I wish that camera angle caught your new shoes that you got at the RevTech brand launchpad competition, newly completed. We just minted a new $50,000 winner, right? Yep. And so we've got David Matthews, we've got Leon Jacobson. To kick off the show, we want to talk about it. After we've got a very, very special guest, Aaron Powell, co-founder and CEO of Bunch Bikes. It's going to be incredible. This is my wife's new favorite product in the world. I can't wait to talk about it. Okay, did we cut away the shoes? We saw it. I think I saw it on the screen down here. Exciting stuff. I wish I had shoes that cool. Leon, come on up here real quick. Let's talk about the brand launch competition, how it went before we get to our interview with Aaron Powell. So welcome to the stage, Leon. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna sit down over here.
Sounds good.
Okay. So first of all, tell our viewers about the brand launch. I'm jumbling the words. Brand Launchpad competition.
Yeah. So
tell us about it.
We had an awesome pitch competition on Friday. That was at UT Dallas with 5 finalists for a chance to win $50,000. And we had some really amazing contestants. It was a very tough competition, but we're super excited. The winner actually is a company called Eternal Fleur. And so they won the $50,000 check, which is pretty crazy. They're disrupting the floral industry, wedding industry. They kind of rent the runway for flowers. So it's pretty cool. And then as you might have seen earlier, David's rocking one of our other finalists, Louis Lehman, who's a designer from Europe and was working for Ferragamo, and now he's out on his own and starting his own brand, which is really cool. And has some really big celebrity endorsements when he rolls out early next year. So that's exciting. And then the other winner, secondary winner, was a concept called Tasties, which is like an automated local farmers market. So it will be kind of everything's automated checkout, smaller footprint concept, and everything's locally sourced from farmers. So they're kind of empowering local farmers. And the first store is opening next year on South Congress in Austin. So prime location. So it's gonna be awesome. We're really excited.
Now I'm intrigued by rent the runway for flowers.
Yeah, so they have come up with a way to preserve flowers. So they are fresh, they still smell like flowers, but they last for a year. So they're gonna work with, think about it, hotels and wedding venues to let them kind of rent out the flowers for special events and weddings, and then be able to take it back and give it to the next person. So they're coming up with a subscription model that's, I think, really innovative. No one else in that industry is doing. And we're super excited. They're actually based in both Los Angeles and New York, so hitting both big markets. And actually one of the founders is from Waco here in North Texas. So yeah, we're super excited. It should be great.
Now, is there footage of this competition that people
There is.
Okay.
So we are putting together the footage right now, but it's all videoed. And it's going to be great. We have great reactions to people winning. We have an amazing lineup of judges. We actually had Pearson Gaines from Press Roots. We had Eamon Kara, who used to work with Mark Cuban companies, doing stuff for Shark Tank, and now owns a very successful venture capital firm here in Dallas. And we had the great David Matthews on the drums as one of the judges. And we also had Bethany, who's the chief marketing officer of Mizzen and Maine, actually the shirt brand that I'm wearing right now, so I have to rep that. And so yeah, it was a great event. We're super excited with how it turned out, and sky's the limit for the winner. So
that
great.
Is so exciting.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to hear it's a huge success.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to watch the footage because I'm a big fan of Shark Tank. Our next guest was actually a participant in Shark Tank. We're going to hear that story here in a minute, but I cannot wait. Is it the studio putting together the RevTech brand launch?
Studio's putting the video together, so you know it's going to be great quality, and it's going to be amazing. So we'll get that over to you and everybody else shortly.
All right. Well, Leon, thank you so
Awesome.
much,
Thank you
sir.
for having me up here.
Absolutely. Always
Appreciate
great to
it.
have you.
Sounds good.
All right. Yeah, listen to those smooth jams. Well, why don't we use this opportunity to bring up our next guest, Mr. Aaron Powell, founder and CEO of Bunch Bikes. Come on. How are you, sir?
Hey, doing good. How's it going?
Good. Sweet. Now, Aaron, we were talking before the show that, I don't know if David, if you feel the pressure, that he was a music grad at UNT.
I'm listening to your every note right now, but I appreciated the slow jam on the way up. That was good. Nice. Put me in the mood.
So, yeah, why don't we start there? So what instrument, or tell us about your studies, and then we want to hear your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, sure. So I was a French horn player in the band. I was a bass player in the orchestra, both, a double major at UNT. And I had this dream that I was going to go like perform in orchestras, and then that dream changed to I'm going to teach. And then, you know, actually with the impetus for leaving that profession was my daughter was born, and I was like, I'm at football games, I'm at contests, I'm before and after school. When do I get to be with my own kid, you know? Yeah. So I was like, I got to find a way to get out of this job. And so what initially had started as just side projects, kind of pay down some student loan, turned into business things. And so actually my first business was selling imported amber jewelry online via Amazon website through some retail stores. And I had like a few hours a day in the evening to work on it, so I automated a lot of things so that it could run while I was gone. So I wasn't shipping out product, Amazon was shipping out product. And so eventually this business grew to where it was making double my teaching salary. And I was like, I'm actually paying to come to work because I could be working on the business full time and growing it more. So, you know, and I set it up remote so I could, anywhere with Wi-Fi in the world, I could run this business because I didn't have a warehouse or anything. So at the end of the school year, I left. We took a trip to Europe.
You play the sad trombone. You're like,
well,
I'm quitting.
I was not very sad about it. But, no, we went to Europe. So I was like, hey, let's travel. As long as I can run this from anywhere, let's just travel. And that's actually where I saw cargo bikes for the first time, was in Europe. And I thought, now that's pretty cool because I'm into bikes. Even when I was a teacher, I was biking 10 miles each way to school because I was just, bikes were my other love besides music. And I was like, okay, I got one kid, I got another kid on the way. This is what I need in my life so I can continue this bike lifestyle as a family. But there wasn't anywhere to buy one in the United States. Very expensive to import one. And I thought, you know, it's kind of the seed of this idea that there might be an opportunity in electric cargo bikes in North America. So that's what brings me to Bunch Bikes today. You know, I started that 4 years ago now.
And so how did that experience importing, you said it was amber jewelry?
Yep.
And then so how did that help you a lot get started?
No, absolutely, because what I learned is a direct-to-customer business model, engaging with your people, finding out what they care about, iterating, improving, selling online, marketing online, buying ads, and it all translated into not starting quite from square one with bikes. So the missing piece on the bikes was you've got much more complicated operations with manufacturing, and you know, you're talking containers on an ocean freighter, you know, necklaces, you know, it was just in a box on a plane. It was very simple. So that was what I had to learn, but a lot of it carried over from one to the other.
So Shark Tank is part of the story.
Yes.
Now, walk us through though, so you did the trip and you said, all right, here's an opportunity. I don't see these bikes in America. I want to do it. I love bikes. I've proven that I can be an entrepreneur. And then there's Shark Tank over here where you're pitching your idea and getting funding. So what were the steps in between there and getting on Shark Tank?
Yeah, sure. Well, so I sold that first business. So initially I was like, you know, I'm going to bootstrap this. I don't need funding. Actually, I didn't even realize at that time that you could go and get money from investors. That wasn't a path I was familiar with. I had just had some money from the sale of the first business. I'm going to put it in, but I'm going to start it the same way where I'm going to get a prototype. I'm going to ride it around, get feedback. I'm going to post pictures on Instagram, and actually just built this audience, just taking pictures and sharing them, so that when I launched a website, I had people ready to buy whenever I was ready to sell something. And so I just did a launch to a list, basically, like, hey, pre-order now, big discount, you'll get it in 4 to 6 months. And I actually paid the factory with customer money from pre-sales. Nice. And so I kind of just grew it organically. But as I said, I had to learn a lot about manufacturing. And so early on, I did not pick a good partner. I didn't vet them well enough overseas, and it got me into some financial problems where I told the story on Shark Tank, but I basically had an entire container of ruined inventory because it got like flooded out. The bikes were underwater, and they shipped them to me anyways. And like I had to basically scrap and like $150,000 of product that I couldn't sell. Yeah. And so at that point, it's like, okay, that's where debt enters the business. That's where, and then basically 2020 and supply chain problems starting to arise. Like I need other people to come in and help with this because I can no longer float it myself. And actually my initial vision kind of grew over time to where I don't think I can self-fund what I'm trying to do here, which is like a cultural change kind of a thing. So that's where Shark Tank, I guess, entered the picture. Twofold: one for the money potential, but also from the exposure. This is a new product category that doesn't exist here. Nobody's searching for it on Google. I'm already buying all the Google traffic there is, and it's crickets. So how do we get people to even be aware of the category as a whole? I need massive exposure. So that's kind of where can I be on the Ellen show? Can I be on Today? Like, what can I be on? So Shark Tank was like, oh, let's just put my name out there. And I guess they thought it was an interesting enough concept that they put me through the process to bring it on because they want a variety of products and interesting stories and that sort of thing. So
it's a perfect Shark Tank product.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just tangible. It's not like some app that
it's made like you have to. Talking about it, people, they're still watching this, they're probably wondering, what is he even talking? You can't describe it with words, you have to see it and then you get it, right? It's a very visual kind of a product. So I think it's made for TV, it's made for video. It was huge. I mean, it really kicked off a lot of demand this year when that aired in March.
So what's the gap between, or the timeline between applying to be on Shark Tank and then you're filming, and then it's aired?
It was more than a year. So I threw my name in the hat beginning of last year, just online. At some point in the middle of the year, somebody went through a list of applications, thought it was interesting, gave me a call, moved me through the process, but it didn't air until March of this year. So 15 months maybe from when I put that initial application in. So I wasn't counting on Shark Tank turning into anything. It's just, actually I wasn't even going to do it, but one of my employees was the world's biggest Shark Tank fan. She's like, oh my God, Aaron, you gotta apply for Shark Tank. You gotta do this. I'm like, I literally just did it so she would stop telling me to do it. I never thought that I would ever get a call or anything like that.
And so you did it, and then I had a friend from high school that was on Shark Tank a few years ago, and their website crashed like the night they were on Shark Tank. And so was it that immediate? I know it seems like now people aren't watching, it's not appointment television. Like people watch it, days later or whatever, but was it a spike like?
Yeah, well, there's two things. Now everything's in the cloud. So, we're on Shopify, very scalable traffic thing. I did call them, let them know, like, hey, we're going to get a lot of traffic, but you can't really break it, Yeah. But then, no, it was a spike, but it was really more of a tsunami over like 3 weeks because people are streaming, they're getting caught up, with their episodes. Like not everybody's watching it live. Although that first night was the biggest, it was a very big 3 weeks. And then it kind of tapered off as people got caught up. And then every once in a while it'll rerun, and then it's like a spike for a day, and then it goes down because nobody's streaming reruns. But yeah, so it's like the gift that keeps on giving. And now we've got an update coming for next season, a little 1-minute segment of where are they now? And so that will put another episode into the mix where Bunch Bikes is getting featured. So it's just going to keep coming for at least another couple of years here.
So Shark Tank, you obviously got a lot of demand. You're on the air. You got new orders, but you also got funding. And so I guess there's probably some things you need to save for that update, but was the funding, was that dollar amount, was that material in helping you scale up operations as well?
Yeah, so it was kind of a combo of two things. That money was helpful, but it took a while to go through due diligence and eventually even be able to access that. Because what you do the deal in the show, but it might be 4 to 6 months behind the scenes of really checking everything out before, and some of the deals that happen on the show don't actually end up happening. So it was like 6 months, right, before I was able to get anything. But actually, the SBA had some really good programs for loans. So I actually got $500,000 through the SBA on a 30-year term, like 3% interest, no payments till next year. So that basically filled my need of like, my lead times went from 3 months to 12 months. Where do I have the cash to float that much inventory? And it was basically from those two sources. And as supply chain evens out over the next couple of years, that kind of comes back, and I'm able to pay down some of that debt as well out of that. So
nice.
Yeah.
It's funny, my mom always watches the show. She's like, Craig, you never introduced yourself. By the way, I'm Craig Shacklet, CEO of URComp. And because we actually took out SBA loans as well. I mean, they had some great programs during the pandemic. They were very generous, very easy to get, and we did the same thing to help us get through. Now, funding is one thing, right? You got the money to order, but obviously you can't watch the news without seeing all the container ships offshore and all the supply chain issues. So talk to us about that.
So that's been freight has been the issue of the year. 2020, the bike industry specifically, and a lot of outdoor focused product industries exploded in demand. People are spending more time in their backyard, more time on the street. How can we get fitness outside? So the bike industry exploded. Of course, the lead times are longer and things are more expensive. But what I didn't anticipate is like a global, like total market kind of like challenge where like all imports are crazy and disrupted. Like that I didn't foresee. And so, normally to ship a container from Shanghai to Dallas is about $4,500. But the container I just paid for was closer to $25,000. And so every container I import is 5 times more expensive, and it's twice as slow to get it. And so the cash flow cycle just expands even more. So it has been a challenge. And, thankfully, I kind of saw this happening in September of last year, and I kind of got the cash together to make these orders so that I could be in stock right now. Like I'm just getting inventory next week that I bought last September. And if I hadn't done that, I would have stock problems right now. A competitor of mine, he's been out of stock for the last 4 months. They just got bikes. I haven't been out of stock this year except for a very small period of time because we did order so far in advance and we were able to find the funds to be able to do that. But it was a very stressful period last year deciding, do I do this or not? Like, I don't know. So, yeah.
Well, let that be a lesson. Go to Bunch Bikes. It's bunchbikes.com, right? And order now. The bikes are amazing. I think we'll go to some footage in a minute do we have footage of my wife riding around? Am I on there too? Because I rode, but I'm not sure if I made the cut. Amazing bikes. So order it now because, as you know, supply chain issues are a thing. At what point, as an entrepreneur, business owner, when you see shipping rates go through the roof, at what point does the math where we should make this in the U.S., when does that, are you still like way far away from that, or at some point is like, shoot, we should start making it here?
Well, that's a multifaceted question, and there's a few factors at play. One is that we have the tariffs that we've been paying on Chinese imports. That's been in place for since January of this year for our category, electric bikes. So on the one hand, I'm like, well, if we manufacture in the U.S., maybe we alleviate some of the lead times, maybe we alleviate some of the tariffs. The problem is, even though we could manufacture part of the bike here, maybe the frame, for example, all of the components are manufactured in one place in the world, and that's China or Taiwan. Motors, brakes, gears, pedals. Am I going to set up manufacturing for every one of those? There's no source for that in the U.S. And so it's like, and if I took the time to do that and set that up, it'd be just in time for the global supply chain to even out anyways.
Yeah.
And so, so I'm looking at solutions to those things, but more in line with what the bigger companies in the market are doing. They're looking at other countries, things like that. Maybe is there a way to get around the tariffs? But for now, staying the course and just eating the costs. And the big experiment this year has been retail prices. So with our costs going up on freight, but also on the products themselves, every step of the way our costs have gone up, and at some point we can't absorb it anymore. So I've had to raise incrementally the retail price this year as things develop. And testing what's the price elasticity for our market. Will they absorb a 5% increase and will our sales stay the same? The answer was yes, but when we raised it 10%, now we started to see a dip. And so what do? Do we leave it at the higher price and maybe put some additional marketing budget to find more customers who will pay the higher price? Or do we leave it at a lower price, eat the margin for now, knowing that eventually it will even out? And those are questions that I'm still trying to answer just via the scientific method and experimenting and data, and nobody really has the answers. It's just everyone trying to figure out how to make sense of the situation we have in the world right now.
That is one of the fun problems of being a business owner, right? Is figuring that out. And you've got to, that's a real interesting thing. I mean, we're in the service business, service and software, so it's, it's not as, there's not as big of a planning arc as with yours, where it's like you're making bets now that you're not going to know if they're the right bet until 2 years from now. So, I mean, but it seems like your product is probably the high-end market.
Yes.
Loves it, right? And it's like David's shoes. The people buying $5,000 shoes that goes up to $5,500. They're probably still going to buy it. I don't know. I'm not in the luxury market. We deal with like high-end customers with gamblers and stuff, but.
Well, there's different segments of the customer base. Like we have people who price is not a concern. They just want the best bike.
Yeah.
And for those people, we haven't seen a change really. It's just, okay, how soon can I get one is the question. It's like, it's more of a question of timing. Like I want it. I saw it on the street. I want one now,
By the way, you mentioned a celebrity that's using it. I don't know if you're allowed to talk.
I can't mention that one, but this exact story I just described was actually how Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank actually became a customer, because he was a customer before I was ever on the show. He literally saw one ride past his house, and he's like, I want 2 of those. And he placed an order, and that's how I got connected with him in the first place. But because of that connection, they didn't allow him to be on my panel on the show because they thought it was like a conflict of, he knew too much about my business already. But behind the scenes, first time in Shark Tank history, somebody who wasn't on the panel actually invested in the business. So he came in and split the deal with Barbara 50-50. So that was a pretty interesting way that it all worked out in the end.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I cut you off because you were saying that there's at the super high end of the market, there are people that are just like, I want that. How much does it cost? I don't care. Give it.
Well, and then there's then there's maybe like the bike or transportation alternative enthusiast type of customer, which I would put myself in this bucket, where I see the value of bikes for the environment, for fitness, for a lot of things. And if I have excess money, I'm probably spending it on bikes. But it's a bit of a stretch for me. So maybe, if you do raise that price 10%, 15%, it makes it harder for me to reach that. So there's a percentage of the market that is like that as well. So it's like, where do we focus? How do we how do we adjust our messaging to focus on which market is bigger? And as we cross certain thresholds, do we reach more of one and less of the other? And these are some of the kind of the existential questions we've been having to answer is how to address different parts of the market and what are we focusing on the most, and how big is each one, and can we sustain the business, or trying to make forecasts a year or 2 out based on these things. It's like, like you said, making bets that I don't know the answer for at least a year or 2. But what we do have is a product market fit where the bike, we have very, very satisfied customers. The reviews are insanely positive. So it's more still an awareness thing and reaching the customers we need to reach, because we know that once they get the bike, they're going to love it. But how do we communicate the value of this product that is online and not in front of them, and describe this new concept in a way that people can see how it fits into their daily life? That's kind of the big gap we have right now, is how do we, yes, I can afford it, but is it worth that investment? Like, what am I getting out of this? That's kind of what we're trying to communicate to people.
Well, I know I experienced it firsthand. It's an amazing tool. I think why don't we roll the footage? I think it's a perfect opportunity to show in real life Bunch Bike how amazing it is.
I was surprised how fast and fun was for me and for the kids.
And it's great. They're comfortable. They're having a great time. They love feeling like celebrities, like they're the homecoming king. Like Sue Ellen said, it's a great ride. It felt really smooth. It's not hard to turn. I thought it'd be harder to turn, especially with 3 kids in the front. It was really easy.
The kids felt safe as we were going a little fast. We all had a lot of fun.
Loved it. All right. Yeah, we had such a blast. Kids were like, I want one. We're in that lower end of the market, more of an enthusiast. We're not in the upper end yet. We need cruises to come back a little bit more. It's funny, when you're talking about the high end, my uncle used to work in private jets. And he'd say, like, if you have to ask how much it costs, you can't afford it. And I remember, like, it was just a funny way to look at this uber high end. And so hearing you talk about like how you are trying to divide it, it's a unique challenge. So
yeah, and I think the challenge is it's just on the messaging and how you package it. And so a realization I had recently was that we've got this premium product, people love it, but when you go to our website, do you get that perception, or does it feel like it's a guy who used to be a band teacher who kind of threw together a Shopify website, and maybe it's time to get something like, you go to a Tesla website. Whoa, I'm blown away. We need the packaging to match the expectation and what it is, So that's kind of the next focus, is how do we match expectation with the reality. The reality is good. We just have to convey that value over the internet, which is a challenge.
Is Tesla the brand you look at, or are there any others?
I look at Tesla, so they had a very new concept, an expensive concept, premium, and didn't rely on third-party dealers. It was this, and to my knowledge, they haven't spent $1 on advertising since they started the business. It was all word of mouth from their very, very enthusiastic customers. One of my customers was one of Tesla's top ambassadors. And he was such an enthusiast about his car. He would make videos, he'd post them on YouTube, put his little affiliate code, and he sold, in a year, he sold like 100 Teslas or something like that, Roadsters, and they're inviting him to the launch parties. He's like, he's not really, and they're putting power banks in his garage, like anything they have to give him, they're giving him, because he just loves his car, and that's kind of what our customers are like. They're typically the first person in their city or neighborhood or town to have anything like this. And so you have to be a bit of a early adopter, forward-thinking type, knowing that attention's going to be on you as you're riding around the street. So these people are very, very excited and enthusiastic about their bikes. And that is kind of a way that we're growing, this kind of person-to-person. People we'll drop a bike in a neighborhood, and if it's a neighborhood with the right kind of customer, we'll have 3 people within a month ordering a bike as well. It just catches on in certain areas really, really quickly.
Well, I hope we can do another episode with you. I don't know when the right timeline is, 6 months or a year or something, but I love the way you laid out the challenge and just how your company's growing. The product's amazing. So this has been a really enjoyable interview for me. So thank you, Aaron.
Great.
Good.
Don't forget the use cases.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, David, you had a great idea before we went live on like kind of a new spin on the Entrepreneur Challenge. So what are we doing now?
Well, I think I'm very interested to hear from Aaron. What are some interesting use cases of how the bunch bike has been used in the marketplace? I imagine there's some that would be quite surprising to us. Is it you've sold over 1,000 bikes out there so far, right?
So I've got a few that come to mind. So in the beginning, I just had myself in mind, solving my own problem, bikes for kids. But really, about a year into it, I get a call from BarkBox. They were the first subscription box company for dogs. Huge company. I think they're a public company now. They had an IPO. But the owner of them, Bark, was Danish, and he was familiar with cargo bikes. And we did a collab with them where we did a custom motorcycle themed limited run bunch bike, had vinyl wrap graphics, motorcycle. We put a motorcycle saddlebag on there. We put handlebars for the dog. We sold them with like dog motorcycle goggles. Crazy collab. But it opened my mind to like, people will buy these bikes to ride their dogs around in. And that's actually a pretty significant segment of our customer base. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. The second, this one's pretty crazy. We shipped a bike to a production company in New York who wanted a bike to create a custom game show on wheels, like cash cab, but out of a bike. And they rode around the streets of New York, picking people up, asking them questions, handing out money. I think it got on the cutting room floor. It never actually aired into anything, but they did a pilot or something. And then this one actually happened today, where there is an Instagram account, Prissy Pig, and this lady has 8 pigs, and she does things with them, dresses them up, goes around. She bought a bike so she can ride her 8 pigs around her neighborhood, and so that's when we're shipping out next week.
That's amazing. David, I think you've got some ideas on other potential use cases for bunch bike.
You know, I do, Aaron, and you know, we're going to share these free. This is just because we're big fans. We're not looking for any kind of commission from the incremental sales you see from this, but I thought of several on the drive down here today that would be very good use cases for you. A kind of obvious one is a mobile Girl Scout cookie cart.
There you go.
Genius.
And it could have competitive advantage over all the Girl Scout cookie sellers that put a table outside a store and like harangue you on your way in and on your way out. This way you could be on the bike and you could follow the customers through the parking lot and keep selling all the way to the car. So I think that one really has power for that Girl Scout team that wants competitive advantage. Mm-hmm. But another one I thought, and there's 2 things tangential to each other. One, it's a natural parade entrant. You don't even really have to decorate it. It will kind of stand out on its own. Just pile some kids in there and have them throw some candy, and it's a natural.
I've done that.
You've done it, okay. So I figured some of these might be plowed fields already. But one kind of tangential to it is, and this is probably more for promo than for practical usage, unless maybe in a circus, but have 21 clowns pile into a bunch bike. You know, like the old thing, you've seen a video of 21 clowns getting out of a VW bug, and somehow you think there couldn't be any more, and more clowns keep coming out. See how many clowns can fit in a bunch bike. I mean, that would be good promo material. But the one I have that's kind of like this one you're going to go with because it's so potent. I think as a transportation for a first date, the bunch bike can't really be beat, because what says to the other person, I really want to have children with you, than pulling up on a bunch bike? So I think as a first date mobile, I think.
You know, last year we actually had somebody, they bought one to use at their wedding, and after the ceremony, the bride sat in the bike and they rode to the reception in a bunch bike, which I thought was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
But I don't know what a first date would say. If that's, hey,
All
I'll
right.
pick you up at 8. Well, what is this? Am I getting in this?
Hop in the basket.
Well, a little facetious, it could be a last date.
I think you could bring back the milkman in one of these bunch bikes.
Oh, for sure. Any kind of delivery stand on wheels.
You know, I almost did this last summer. Actually, yeah, it was summer 2020. The pool's closed. My kids are hot. I thought, what if I put a tarp in here, filled it full of water? Now we've got a swimming pool on wheels. But with some quick cubic meter calculations online, I realized that this was going to be way exceeding the weight limit capacity of this bike. Water's surprisingly heavy, so we didn't actually go with the idea for fear of damaging my bike. But
You know, I like maybe you could have like kind of a pirate fight where the kids have squirt guns and you're doing like
There
a
you go.
bunch bike war. Anyway, I'm excited we're going to save up, we're going to get a bunch bike, and then we're going to explore all these possibilities.
Cool.
I need a matching bike with David.
Yes, you do.
Well, Aaron, this has been amazing. I feel like every episode of the REV Show, we one up the last, well, I shouldn't say one up the last one, because the last one was great as well. But this has been amazing. So thank you. Congratulations on your success, and looking forward to doing this again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.